Welcome to Mentor Time, everybody. I'm happy for us to get together again and talk about everything mentoring. This week, we're going to talk about how you can use your experience to demonstrate your passion. Here's what we're going to cover. We're going to start with talking about leading with the words passionate, dedicated to, committed to. Then we'll go on to, really, I do have experience, because that's a lot of the reaction I get. And then, as always, we'll end with, and what should you do? The reason that I want to talk about this is for many years, when I see those words in people's bio paras, in their CVs, resumes, and sometimes in cover letters, but mostly it's in the documents that you're first seen. And remember that documents and online presence are the first thing people see about you. They're your writing sample. They're the impression that people form for you. And I have said for a decade, unless you're a really big, important person that everybody follows and you've already got proven thought leadership and trust in the world, most job postings are for hiring people that can do the work, i.e. performance. Generally, organizations don't hire for passion, they hire for what you can do. So past performance is a predictor of future action in this case. We talked about this a year and a half ago, yes, almost 2 years ago. And at that time, I did a search for the word passion in job postings. And obviously it wasn't a very detailed one. I didn't go on every job board, but it also shows how quickly things have changed on LinkedIn. Because at that time, a Google search, my GLIT, as many of you hear me call that, my Google literature review, had only a couple job postings where passion came up at all in those, as you can see. So let's go forward and look at where we are now. Yesterday or Saturday, when I started searching, I did a search in LinkedIn. Now, we've talked in the last year about how LinkedIn has really made an aggressive move into LinkedIn carrying job postings, and they've gone from almost nothing to a tremendous amount in a year. So I searched just for the word passion in jobs. That's the very limited search I did. I had over 660,000 jobs that listed that. I want to give you a sample of what was in there. This is the very first job, and it says we're blah, 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 passion. Here's the job posting. It was, I think, at the University in Wisconsin. And what you'll see is lots of the expertise they want. That's the stuff in yellow. Nowhere does passion come there. It's do this, provide this, show that you can do that. Even in the responsibilities, they don't talk about it. You have to get all the way down to that red circle before you see the word passion. And in fact, they don't lead with that. They say your experience and your passion. So they want to know about you, but they don't necessarily ask you, are you passionate about this job? Then go ahead and apply. Now, granted, this is through Sue's filter on this, of course. The second job is at Gates Foundation, and the word passion came up. And I thought, oh, I wonder where that is. It's under experience. But notice that it doesn't lead with, please tell us you're passionate about women's health innovations. They say they want experience in creativity, thoughtful, curious leadership. I don't know how you prove that either. Welcome, Bernadette. Happy to have you along. That's great. You can stay off video if you want. It's totally up to you.
Okay, thank you.
So this is the second job. And I wanted to show you both of these jobs because we are seeing more of it, certainly. And I didn't go through even more than the first screen of all the jobs LinkedIn said had passion in it. But I want to show you what it really means to be able to recognize and use that term without alienating people and with being able to demonstrate what you actually do. So let's go on to the next section. And I put this as I do have experience with a question mark, because when I talk to people about using their I'm passionate to, I'm dedicated to, I'm committed to, excuse me, statements, I have a feeling in my head, I see this beautiful rocks. Everyone's different, but They tell me it's because I want people to know I am, even though I don't have experience in that, or because I'm making a job shift and I'm really interested in social impact. There's also a group of them, and I get the sense that everybody's looking for a way to stand out. So instead of saying I'm the blue speckled rock, or I'm the gray big rock, or I'm the little red rock, we're saying I'm passionate about inequalities and I am committed to making sure that health inequities are rectified. This is like a riverbed of rocks. That's great. I want those words in there, but not the passionate and committed, because those words are aspirational and they don't tell people what you've actually done. So when I get but do I really have experience, Sue? I want to show you a few examples. In the middle of this bio-para, this person put passionate about tackling inequalities and contributing to a fair and sustainable world. Everything in pink is what she's already done. That leads me to know that she's actually passionate about these because she's doing it. In fact, the sentence before says she's building strategic partnerships and designing impactful programs to advance gender diversity and equality. So when you talk about reframing, she can take the tackling inequalities, and if she wanted to say to advance gender diversity and tackle inequalities, that gets the phrase in, because sometimes people are using phrases from job postings or common issues that they want recognized when they're going into a job application system where the applicant tracking system may be set up to look for search terms. But as you can see, she has 3 in one bio-para of 6 sentences or so. She has 3 examples of work she's already doing that is tackling inequities, that does contribute to a sustainable and fair world. So again, she has the evidence, she just needs to reframe to use it. Another example, this person led off originally with passionately and committed to. But look in yellow, I realize I've done the opposite color coding in this one. Look in yellow, all of the places that she's worked on health and rights of people, especially in sexual and reproductive health, but also in intimate partner violence, things that are focused on gender equality and gender violence. So she has a lot, again, the point is she has a lot of evidence, she has to just use it. This example was a person who said in her first sentence, committed to addressing health inequities through collaborations. Good, then tell me how you do the collaborations and what you get out of them. Here she is. She said, contributed to local policy changes by developing school plans and inclusivity plans. For example, that's one I assume of her cross-sector collaborations, creating creating and strengthening safe, supportive, and inclusive environments, et cetera, et cetera. And finally, this is a person who's a technology expert. In fact, he took a year off, trained himself in coding to go into a new career after having been in social transformation, social impact. He talked about being passionate about creating socially transformative technologies, but he's actually been doing it all along, even before he got to technology. He was a community organizer and a well-known speaker in the United States. Had a lot of experience. You all have the experience. I have yet to work with someone, even a very young person just starting out on their career path, where there isn't some part of what they've done that can't be applied to an evidence-based statement about leading with your experience and then recognizing your passion. We always end with, what should you do? I don't have fancy pictures for these because I don't make pictures for the kinds of things we need to talk about. You can be passionate as long as you show your evidence. And showing your evidence, as you all know from either working with me or having worked through the course that I run and I facilitate, the first thing you do is claim your credit, meaning identify where you've actually done the things that you want to be able to show your passion, your dedication, your commitment, your aspirations for, your motivation to, all of those words that are aspirational. Claim your credit first. Reframe your evidence, use your evidence, and then link it to what you want to explain your passion is, but don't go overboard on your passion. So I'm going to give you a little formula. And for those of you who've been at MentorTime for the last 2.5 years, actually 3 years, no, 2.5, we're up to 2, we're up to. You've heard me talk about leading with caveat clauses. I say, don't lead with the caveat clause, the dependent clause, but you can use your evidence first and add a caveat clause that says something like, she has worked in promoting gender violence interventions, emergency interventions for the last year, continuing her work that she's been dedicated to for 4 years in addressing partner violence in difficult domestic settings or whatever it is. So you can add those words in there, but make sure they're tied to evidence first. Again, always start your sentences with your evidence as much as you can. And I'm going to now say, and you can actually use them more freely in cover letters somewhat. You've got to still be careful because that's your 1 page, 3/4 of a page to make a few points about your key evidence and unusualities. But your interviews is where you can expand on these. So this was a very short session today, and I deliberately wanted to make it short because I wanted to be able to answer questions and help you reframe evidence on the fly. So I'm going to ask Ron for questions or comments.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. This was lovely, what you presented here. I think it's a nice, simple explanation. And while you were doing that, sorry for the noise in the background, but they're building a house. One thing I think the first thing that occurred to me is that is how do I help myself help others understand the passion, commitment, whatever, these vague terms. And so for me, I think that's the biggest challenge as a person trying to describe themselves so that it can be helpful. And that is, so what is the question? For me, the question is simple. How would someone know I was passionate or committed based on past evidence? And that's a summary basically of what you said. So, because you kept on saying that in here, as you're saying how, et cetera, et cetera. So for ourselves, when we're trying to figure it out for ourselves, because Sue's not available right now, so what is it that we do? And so that's the question we have to ask ourselves. And what is it that shows I'm passionate? What is it that I've done that illustrates these things? And that's probably the harder question, is just asking yourself, because I don't have a coach or a mentor right now. What is it that I need to say that shows it, proves it? And I think you gave lots of wonderful examples there, Sue, and how the answer appears and what it looks like. So thanks very much, Sue. That's basically my comment, because it's hard and easy simultaneously.
I love that, Ron. You made a really important point, and that is that we don't always have someone else around to ask at the time we're having to write it, which says reach out and ask one of your friends, or reach back to someone you're connected to, like those of you who are on MentorTime regularly. I know you're connected on LinkedIn and others. Welcome, Sadia. Happy to have you too. I think it's really important that you get used to asking yourself, how do I prove myself to someone else? Because ultimately, you, as Ron and I always talk about, you've got to convey your story in a way the other person can hear it. And not everybody's as fussy as Sue is about hearing the word, oh, but Sue, I'm passionate about social impact. And this has been now for a decade and a half, I've been hearing this. And I know I react strongly to it because I'm a program evaluator. I can't measure passion, but I can measure experience. But Ron makes an important point. It is hard sometimes to do that for yourself. And I deliberately didn't give you the reframed bio paras in how they could weave together that. I was trying to show that you all have experience that you don't realize when you're describing it leads to how your passion, how your dedication, how your commitment goes forward. That's all of us on this call today. We're all the same way. Ron and I are the same way. When we talk about it with each other before and after we talk to you, we talk about it's so great. We're so dedicated to making sure we can help people get ahead. We were talking about we're having open office hours. You'll get a message on that tonight. We do it because we love it, because we want to help people. We're dedicated to it too. but that's not necessarily going to get you in the door. So thank you, Ron, for reminding people that you have this much time often with a mentor, a coach, a professional colleague, a friend colleague. There must be a word for friend colleague better than that term. I will open the floor. Do other people have comments or questions?
We have a
Peter.
hand from Peter.
Yeah. Go ahead, Peter.
What would you suggest for in interviews? And I'll give you my example. Usually one of my kind of canned responses is I'll have to get a question about why will you succeed in this position? And usually like the third point, I'll say I have this experience. And then for the like last point, I'll just say, and I'm just really passionate about public health and I'm a public health geek or something like that, just to say that that really drives me to succeed. Do you think that's good in an interview, or would you cut it from the interview like that as well?
I actually like that you presented at least two examples of what makes you, how can you prove you're going to succeed, or how will I know you're going to succeed? And I like you pulling it to the more informal. I might be more clear about public health is so broad, and sometimes the hiring managers aren't always as steeped in public health as we are. But even if they are, you could use that last part to be passionate about public health. And maybe you say this, especially health system strengthening, or I know that I'm recognized in public health for getting in and getting out quickly and doing those rapid assessments. Again, you reinforce it, and Ron's nodding his head. So I want you to feel comfortable that you've got a great formula there with three ideas, three experiences. The first two, the hit them hard kinds of remind people about that, and then make light of it. I might not say I'm a public health geek, because that for some people, and this just comes at me because I've been in technology so long, people still hear nerd and geek as a person who wants to sit in front of a computer and fool around with technology and whatever. I would not claim that title for yourself, but I would feel free to embroider on what your passion for public health looks like on a day-to-day basis, kind of thing. Ron, do you have comments on that?
Yeah, actually, when I was listening to you, Peter, say it came out, because that's the other side of it. Is it's hard to bring out the emotion in a piece of text, and yet when you were saying it, it came across. And so I was convinced. You convinced me. And I agree with what Sue is saying, is this idea of even strengthening it a bit more by even in the passion statement, just saying and just embellishing that sufficiently so that it draws it back to the specifics of the job. But yeah, it was very convincing what you said to me, or what I heard anyway. And it felt like you were saying it to me. But yeah, and that is actually a really important difference. Is that in an interview, you can come across with the passion because of the way you speak.
Yeah, great point. Does that help you, Peter?
Yeah, that does help me. Especially like thinking about it, in the writing, it's hard to show that, but when you get to that interview, that excitement can really come across. And so, yeah, that helps me to think about, and also helps me I like your comment about not saying nerd or geek, because that can be taken wrong. So I'll definitely make that as an adjustment.
And
But
remember,
yeah, that was really helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just do remember, I'm a sample of one, or Ron and I are a sample of two. But I think the opportunity is always there to sometimes feel too casual if you get comfortable in an interview. But at the same point, I loved it. Like Ron said, when you started off, I could immediately feel your passion. I thought, yeah, this is a great place to put it after the examples. And I love that you're using it in the, how do I know you're going to succeed? Or I can't remember how you phrased the question. That was a great way to include it in there without starting. Clearly, you didn't start off saying, when they say, tell me about yourself, well, I'm passionate about this and I'm committed to, and I know you well enough to know, Peter, you don't do that. That's great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. I do want to acknowledge Bernadette. I know you're new. Maybe this gave you a flavor of what MentorTime can help you with. You're welcome. Please feel free to come back. I'm still trying to I haven't looked at the topics that I'll cover in the sessions we're going to have in April, but we'll have a couple. I'm going to work around holidays, and Ron's going to be traveling back and settling back in Canada from Mexico. So it'll be great to have you, Sadia. It's great to have you on as always, and Stephanie, likewise. So, Ron, I forgot to show my pictures. Here are the pictures I used. And I guess this one on the top left, that was supposed to be not just reframing your language, but stepping outside the box and reframing your language. I have to explain it all. All right. Any other check-ins with the chat box, on or off topic? This is your time, whether it's on the topic or not, if there's a question or a comment you wanted to make today. All right, then. Ron, I'm going to ask you to close MentorTime for today, please.
Thanks very much, everyone, for coming. And yeah, this is something I'm passionate about, and it's a delight to have some time with folks who can gain benefit from some of the experiences that Sue and I have. So thank you for coming and illustrating that there's things that we want to share with you are worth sharing. So thanks for doing that. And I look forward to meeting up with you folks again next month. We're going to be doing 2 more topics next month. And I'm looking forward with great passion.